All right, welcome in, my friends. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about what would a bad offseason look like for the Denver Broncos. But before we get into it, I just want to say, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already. We're going to be talking Broncos all offseason long on this channel. Follow me on Twitter if you like what I have to say on here, at Kodiak Broncos. My comment question of the day is, which sports team is your favorite besides the Broncos? The Broncos might not even be your favorite sports team, so what is your favorite sports team? The reason I ask is because my second favorite sports team, the Avalanche, just lost Miko Ranston. So this made me think about, you know what? I wonder if other Broncos fans are just in straight up pain right now. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and let's dive right into it. So here are some things that I have to say before I begin this. I'm just trying to do something a little different. Rather than talk about why I want the Broncos to draft Tyler Warren or Ashton Jeanty or something like that, I'm going to be talking about why, or some moves they could make that I would be disappointed, talking to you guys the day after the draft. I would just be like, dang, I really, really didn't like that if they did a few of these moves. Like, if I'm sitting here in the middle of March and they do a few of these things, then honestly, I'm going to sit here and be like, wow, I made a video about this a long time ago. But 2020 was probably our worst offseason ever, besides 2009, and we loved it at the time. We loved it at the time because, we drafted Judy, Handler, Alberto, and a bunch of other dudes, and, every move aged poorly. Like, there's a difference between bad process and something aging poorly. And once again, it's hard to have a bad offseason, even if it ages poorly. The Texans trading DeAndre Hopkins for like a second round pick, yeah, and David Johnson, yeah, that was a bad move. And the Giants drafting Daniel Jones at 6th overall, yes, that was a bad move. And it's stuff like that is few and far between, because even though we can see at the time that those are, poor moves, it's really, really hard to set the bar really low for the offseason. So, yeah. And let's dive right into it. So, with our own free agents, beginning with this, the only three guys I would be pretty disappointed if we brought back is Lil Jordan Humphrey, Javonte Williams, and Matt Parrott. The reason I talk about Lil Jordan Humphrey is because, listen, I know that people love him for his effort as like a blocking wide receiver, but there are so many times this year where he would make a crucial mistake on, the first snap of the game, first drive of the game, first play of the game, and it would always really, really hamper us until we stopped giving him opportunities to make those mistakes. Like, I remember in the middle of this year, I was just like, all right, our weekly scheduled Lil Jordan Humphrey mistake has happened. Yeah, it just feels like that role can get an upgrade. I know that there are some people who absolutely love what he brings to the team, but I just don't think the downside is worth it. Like, I can respect a good blocking wide receiver. I can't respect one that actively hurts us in ways that Lil Jordan Humphrey did this year. Javonte Williams, just don't do it, man. There's just nothing about that move that makes sense. We just cannot afford to bring him back. We can cap wise, but oh man, that would make my stomach turn. So Matt Pert, he had a bad preseason, and he's just not needed anymore with the Palczewski emergence. So with him, he was never supposed to be that third tackle anyway, behind Bowles and McGlinchey. But he ended up losing that competition in training camp to Palczewski, which is why when McGlinchey was hurt, Palczewski ended up starting over Pert. But with Quinn Bailey, I think Quinn Bailey was actually penciled in as the number 3 heading into this year, and Palczewski kind of took that role once Bailey got hurt. But yeah, I just don't see a need for him anymore. I think give me the upside with Frank Crum, even though we haven't seen him at all. So these are the free agent wide receivers on the left and the free agent running backs on the right. And you'll notice that with the free agent running backs, it's just really, really tough. These waters are really, really rough. Same with the free agent wide receivers. Once you get past like number 12 and Mac Hollins, like you just look at a bunch of those names and you're just like, huh? Like, why would, like, these guys are still in the NFL? And that's how I feel. We're down bad this time of year when we're looking at, top 50 NFL free agent wide receiver rankings, and number 18 is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So a big gripe I would have with this offseason is if they went too reliant on retread veteran mid dudes. And this free agency class is just not good at all. And I remember I saw a Broncos reporter, I remember who it was, on Twitter say a week ago that, the Broncos, how would you feel if they signed Najee Harris, Tyler Boyd, Juju Smith-Schuster, Austin Hooper? And I tweeted back at him, and I was like, why would you want literally any of these guys? And I would just vomit if we signed Najee Harris. I'm done with having running backs that look like they run in mud. Uh, Najee Harris, he is a reliable running back, and I know that that doesn't mean anything to us as fans, but it does to NFL teams, which is why I think that there will be a few suitors for him in free agency. And I just really hope that one of them is not us, because if you think the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is bad, you're correct. And maybe one of the reasons they're bad is because they continuously give Najee Harris over 200 touches every single year, and he gets like sub 4 yards per carry, and or maybe not quite that extreme, but it would just be like the Javonte Williams experience all over again. People are going to be like, well, he's almost a shoo-in every year for 1,000 yards. Yeah, because he gets the ball so much, not because he's actively creating his way to 1,000 yards. But if we were to go the veteran free agency wide receiver route, signing Keenan, Diggs, and D-Hop to market contracts would just be painful. Like, that would just be bad. I don't see any reason for that. They just don't fit our direction. And once again, it would be easy to stunt the development of some of our wide receivers if those guys were to be signed. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, feels like it would be hard to screw up inside linebacker and free safety because the standard is pretty low at those positions. And also, we've kind of made a name for getting serviceable inside linebacker production from guys who are just literally complete nobodies. Like Alex Singleton, CFL Defensive Player of the Year. So I guess he wasn't a complete nobody, but I don't think anybody expected him to be as reliable as he's been. Like, he hasn't been a great player or anything like that, but he's been very reliable. He's been a heartbeat. He was a heartbeat of the defense in 23 and early on in 24. So yeah, it would just be really hard to screw that up because it's pretty hard to go the retread veteran route on the defensive side of the ball, especially when the guys on your roster are as bad as ours are. Now, do not do something dumb at backup quarterback. I know that it can be tempting to go bargain hunting, but you want at least a little bit of upside. Like the Buffalo Bills and Baltimore Ravens, their seasons lie in the hands of Mitch Trubisky and Josh Johnson if something were to happen to Lamar and Allen. Now, I understand what you're saying in that situation. The fact that they haven't made moves for backup quarterbacks that are better than those dudes, it's basically saying that our season lies in the hands of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, which isn't wrong. That's not entirely wrong, but I would like some floor stability and upside, a mix of all three with whoever we bring in. I know that's not easy to find a way to get all those within one player, but whether they keep Zach Wilson, I hope they keep Zach Wilson. I think we can probably let Jarrett Stidham walk because I think that does save us a little bit of capital. But yeah, just don't do anything dumb at backup quarterback. Don't go after like a Brandon Allen, a Josh Dobbs, or like a Case Keenum type. Like that kind of range is just not where you want to be searching. Now, free agency in the draft, not adding the right wide receiver. So I was saying for a little bit after the season ended, I was just like, okay, I wouldn't be panicking if the Broncos did not add at the wide receiver position. But the more I think about it, the more I think it would be pretty wise to at least bring in one more dude. And if you have the wrong wide receiver, you stunt the development of Franklin and Mims. And an example of two guys who the Broncos could actually use are Darius Slayton and Mac Hollins. So first, starting out with Darius Slayton, this guy got 700 yards pretty much every year of his career with Daniel Jones as his quarterback, which that's probably got to be adjusted to like 1150 or something like that, considering Daniel Jones was quarterback. So with the quarterback adjusted yards, not kidding, but he is a very reliable free agency veteran wide receiver presence, and he still has some juice in the tank. I know his numbers this year were not that impressive, but the Giants as a whole were just a laughable offensive ecosystem. So I'm kind of going to give him a pass, especially because he's still 28. And yeah, he is in the age where wide receivers start to decline or whatever, but I still feel like he's got something in the tank. And Mac Hollins, man, we saw it firsthand in Buffalo. He's one of those guys that you hate when you're playing against him, but you love him when you're on your team. And the Broncos could use a guy like that on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that, he could be an upgrade to the Lil Jordan Humphrey role because A, good blocker, B, good guy in the screen game, like whether he's catching the ball or, blocking or whatever. But he can also, there have been some pretty nasty career highlights of him just absolutely burning dudes downfield. So yeah, Mac Hollins, he could fit in that like screen intermediate deep role And I would honestly feel much better about that role than a guy like LaJordan Humphrey. Now, examples of adding the wrong wide receiver are Tyler Boyd, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I just could not imagine them going to the podium with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, signing him for like a 2-year, like $12 million contract, or, similar to what we gave Josh Reynolds. And then them being like, yeah, we think this guy can be an integral part of our offense. Like, bro, Marquez Valdes-Scantling was probably the worst starting wide receiver in the NFL in 2022 and 2023, and that was with Patrick Mahomes as quarterback. Now, Tyler Boyd and Juju Smith-Schuster, those guys are also just not very good anymore. I think the reason that I'd be pretty out on these guys is because they're just not what we need. I feel like it'd be misuse of resources to go after a guy like Boyd, to go after a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, and take away those reps from Franklin and Mims. But contract value, length, and guarantees and draft capital would be very telling as to what they think about these guys. Because if they sign Tyler Boyd to like a 1-year, $2.5 million deal, I'd be like, all right, whatever. But if they sign him to like a 2-year, like $10 million deal, fully guaranteed, then I'd be asking some questions. Now, free agency and the draft, again, I'm going to go in that route as well. I'm going to get into the draft real soon here, but you need to add a nose tackle. You need to add a real nose tackle because I want DJ Jones to stay, but he is definitely better as a defensive tackle. And, teams are going to have 8 months to watch film on us. Like, whoever our week 1 opponent is in 2025 has 8 months to watch film on us. And the two teams that really blew our doors off were Baltimore and Buffalo this year, and they blew our doors off because we honestly didn't have a nose tackle. We were just overmatched in the run game, and, if the CBS broadcast can point it out, then you bet your rear that a team that watches, 10 to 12 hours of tape on you leading up to game week is definitely going to have an idea on how to get it done with their run game as well. And the inside linebacker room is also ready for an overhaul after an injury to Singleton. Like, Singleton, he was never a great inside linebacker, but he was very reliable. And he also had a bad, this entire room had a bad final month of 2024. So I'm kind of ready for all of them to move on. Like, Barton, he can stay if he really wants. Like, if the Broncos wanted to come back, then I will trust them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they let him walk. Strnad can go. The only way I'd be fine with Justin Strnad staying is if he's a special teams presence, because I do feel bad for Strnad because he was never supposed to be in the situation that he was this year in the first place. And after the Cleveland game, it just completely became unraveled for him after he gave up some really, really formidable play in that position. But I think now that film is out on him, now that teams know that they can attack the intermediate part of the field, and Strnad actually got benched, I think, a handful of times in the final parts of the year. So I think now that that's out there, I don't think the Broncos will be able to get away with the Justin Strnad experiment again. And listen, PJ Locke, he just cannot be your starting free safety week 1 of 2025. Too many times this year, I saw him get bodied by Geno Smith. I saw him get absolutely boxed out by David Njoku in the red zone. What else did I see? Saw him get absolutely bodied by Gus Edwards and Hassan Haskins on the final drive of the Chargers game on Thursday Night Football. By the way, that 3rd and 12, he just straight up tripped over Jaquan McMillan. So that was really unfortunate there. And it was just in the Buffalo game, it felt like everything was targeted towards him. Knox and Kincaid, two guys who have been relatively disappointing throughout their NFL careers, they were just completing deep balls all day to PJ Locke's part of the field. And that, 10-second touchdown that Josh Allen had, PJ Locke let up on the play. Granted, I will give him some slack there that, you probably don't expect a play to last that long, but still, gotta play till the whistle, man. And I honor PJ Locke. I respect him. I love that he earned his chance. And he is a useful player. He is a useful player. I'm not going to say that he's not, but not a starter. Now, as far as the draft, I feel like of the 5 targets that I talked about, that we've talked about the most for the Denver Broncos, we basically have Tyler Warren. Who else do we have? Emeka Egbuka, Colston Loveland, and then Jeanty, and then Luther Burden. Those are the 5 guys that I see grouped to us, or mocked to us, at number 20 the very most. And I think of the 5, I want Luther Burden the least. But if we were to actually trade capital to go up and get him, I think that would be a huge misuse of resources. So he is just not what the Broncos need at wide receiver. and he doesn't actively solve any problems within the offense. He doesn't actively solve the issue that we have right now of not being able to have an intermediate game. Like Burden, he's also likely to fall, not rise based on this past year because he got outproduced by Theo Weiss, who was a 6th, 7th round guy coming into this draft, and I've seen a lot of clips on Twitter of him just not giving a lot of effort when the play doesn't go his way. So we've kind of already done that with Jerry Jeudy, and I'm just not really interested in doing that again, especially if we have to trade up for him. Now, what I will say is that he is a decent gamble because if he can run intermediate routes, then he would add a lot to this offense. But based on the way that Mizzou used him, they used him as like a Debo kind of player, and we already kind of have that with Marvin Mims. So the only way that I think that could work is if one of Burden or Mims could feasibly run intermediate routes on a consistent basis, and I'm just not going to bank on that happening. I would not trade other picks to bank on that happening because that is the bet you're making, and I just don't think it's something that the Broncos should consider at this time. So rounds 1 through 4, I think if you don't come away with at least one running back and one tight end, I think that I'd be questioning the process this offseason because even if you sign a Juwan Gesicki type, you still need to add at the position aggressively. Like a Juwan or Gesicki should not impact your plans at that position in the draft at all. And I would lose my mind if they passed on a running back in the draft in favor of the free agency guys. So if we signed Alexander Madison and we passed, which causes us to pass on Trevion Henderson in round 2, that would just be really, really nauseating. And now is the time to get Bo Nix some weapons because our Super Bowl window is just now opening. So you got to add, especially at a position like running back, that's pretty easy to project how these guys are going to be as pros. That's now's the time to do this. Now's the time to add guys and get them while they still have juice because running backs, they're kind of like cars. As soon as you take them off the lot, they lose value as assets. Now we have seen a emergence this year in second contract dudes like Henry, like Saquon and Jacobs in Green Bay, but the simplistic thing here is that good running backs succeed behind good offensive lines. We have a good offensive line. Granted, more of a pass blocking line than a run blocking line, but I would say our line is still pretty good, and I would trust them to run block heading into next year, even if they keep the same 5 guys from this year, and Bulls, Powers, Wattenberg, Miners, and McGlinchey. But the absolute worst case scenario for next year weapons-wise is just a repeat of last year, where you don't really have anybody at tight end, you don't really have anybody at running back, and that would just really, really hamper us because there was a reason nothing was short intermediate this year. There was a reason why everything was either a screen or a 20-yard bomb. So yeah, that's how I kind of feel like the Broncos could screw up this offseason. I think that even if they don't do a lot of the moves that we want them to do, I think it'd be very hard for them to have a bad offseason unless they decided to punt on skill position dudes altogether and they just chose the wrong one straight up. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.